and good luck. I'm Dov Hikind, and you are tuned in and listening to the Dov Hikind Show. Thank you for joining us. We're here tonight and every Saturday night to discuss current issues and interesting topics and to hear your thoughts, views, and opinions. Dov, good evening, good luck. How are you?
Good, Baruch Hashem. Had a wonderful Shabbos. How was yours?
Very nice, very nice. Good. Wonderful weather. We had a guest lecturer, scholar in residence this Shabbos. Had listened to several lectures.
No, that's
very
good.
Nice.
That's good. Anyway, we are going to have on the show in a couple of moments, the controversy. I don't know how many people are familiar with the name Pam Geller. She's gotten a lot of attention over the last number of years. She is very outspoken. You might call her an activist. Speaks out with regard to radical Islam, things like Sharia law, sort of spreading in the United States, whether it is or not. We'll get a chance to talk to her. But she was scheduled to speak at the synagogue in Great Neck, the Great Neck Synagogue, Rabbi Polakov Shul. And, there was a lot of pressure from Jewish groups and others for them to cancel her visit. It was scheduled for tomorrow morning, actually. And after a tremendous amount of pressure, it was actually canceled. And now it was canceled from that synagogue. We'll be talking about that tonight with Pam Geller and also with Jeff Weisenfeld. And now she is, in fact, scheduled to speak at two synagogues tomorrow. The Chabad Shul synagogue has invited her tomorrow morning. I hope to be there myself as well. Want to listen. I want to learn. And she'll be at another synagogue, I think at Rabbi Rosenberg in New Jersey. So, again, it's developed into, I just found it very interesting, Dov, because just recently we had the whole situation at Brooklyn College where this group, BDS, two speakers were invited to the university by the students, by the university itself. And there was a whole issue about freedom of speech. They have you don't have to agree with them, but they have a right to present their point of view. And it's funny, a lot of people of a similar vein, people who have a similar point of view, obviously felt differently about Pam Geller speaking at a synagogue in Great Neck.
Right, those people that were outspoken and trying to, make sure that the BDS movement had the chance to speak were the ones that were trying to stop her from talking here in Great Neck.
Exactly. My position in the Brooklyn College case was, I was sort of the liberal in that case, where I never questioned the right of, the students to invite someone that I found distasteful and that many of us find distasteful. The issue was that the university was sponsoring it. They were involved. And boy, all the editorials that I believe the New York Times had an editorial on that issue at Brooklyn College. I didn't notice anything similar with regard to Pam Geller and again, as far as I'm concerned, I'm very much bothered by the fact that the synagogue canceled her, whatever their reasons are. Do we have Pam with us?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do have Pam on the phone, and as you mentioned, Dov, she is a blogger, an author, and a political activist and a commentator. She appears regularly on television and radio, and she is the founder and editor and publisher of Atlas Shrugged, a blog. And we're thrilled to have her joining us on the phone. Pam, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure.
I look forward to actually meeting you tomorrow. I will be at the event, the Chabad Synagogue, and I look forward to listening to you. I've read about the things you say and the things you do, and I give you a lot of credit for having the courage to speak out on many issues that are extremely important.
I also just want to say one thing quickly. I want to thank you for being so clear and vocal on the free speech issue and unafraid. And it may not seem to you as if it's a big deal, but take it from my purview, from my perch. It's huge. It's really it's singular and it's rare, and I just want to tip my hat to you and thank you.
Well, Pam, thank you very much. Look, we were talking about Brooklyn College. I'm sure you followed not too long ago, and I and all the quote good guys, the liberals and the people who believe in free speech and people have a right to express their point of view. It's so interesting. I always feel that it's as long as it's their point of view.
Of course, it's free speech for me, but not for thee.
Exactly, precisely. So I find it fascinating. Let me ask you, with regard to the Great Neck Synagogue that basically caved in. I mean, I know the rabbi, he's a good guy, and the people there are wonderful people. But at the end of the day, Pam, they basically caved in. They basically let some of these radical groups, some of the groups that didn't want you to speak, these are not friends of Israel.
No.
In spite of the fact that many of them are Jewish,
Well, I will say that aspect became very, very visible at the end. But if you had watched the arc of the story, I had been announced, I think it was late February, early March, around that time, and it was the executive director of the Islamic Center of Long Island, Habib Ahmed, who went on a jihad, as it were, to get me canceled using his political office, the Human Rights Commission. He's a Nassau County Human Rights Commissioner. Over that signature, over his title, he sent out to small, influential group, very vocal group, powerful small group, to pressure the synagogue into canceling me. Now, how do we know this? Because those emails, the trove of those emails were released, and we have them, so we know exactly how the machinery behind these cancellations operates. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later where you see these uber-left rabbis who defamed and slandered me. I mean, you're not supposed to bear false witness, but to say that I call, for example, the Rabbi Jerome Davidson said that I call all Muslims animals. This is outrageous. I work with Muslims who are in dangerous situations. The way my work is described, again, it's a form of defamation to marginalize the work. As Jews, it is our mission to speak the truth, to speak emes, and this is what we are. This is what we have been commanded to do, and this is exactly what I do. And I challenge anyone to cite my actual work. They never cite the work. They never use examples. They just throw the smear and defamation. It is a way of destroying the messenger. If you destroy the messenger, the message is never going to be heard. And we are having a free speech demo after the event at Chabad in front of Habib Ahmed's office in the Nassau County Human Rights Commission, demanding that he be terminated because he violated his public office in using his title to strong-arm the shul into canceling us. And it is very sad that they came under such pressure and there were such security concerns that they allowed a defender of Israel, a defender of the Jewish people, to be canceled. It sends a terrible message. I understand that there were fears for the children, and there is no one who is more cognizant of the children than I am. But on the other hand, I ask you, Dov, what are we teaching our children? They go to Hebrew school, they learn about Queen Esther, they learn about the Maccabees, they learn about King David, and then when the first hint of trouble, the first hint of thuggery, what are you teaching them? You're teaching them to cave. That's the message, is it not?
Absolutely, Pam. Joining us on the radio is, I know, a friend of yours and someone also who is outspoken and he believes in something, he stands up for it, and we don't have that many people out there who do that. It's a lot easier to cave. It's a lot easier to just be always politically correct. But he does what he thinks is right, and I really admire that. We have with us Jeff Wiesenfeld, who's a trustee of the board of the City University of New York, and has always been involved and continues to be involved. Jeff, it's good to have you.
You too. Good to be with you and Pamela.
So this is, again, you and I spoke about the Brooklyn College thing only a short while ago, and all the quote good guys who came out about freedom of speech and people have a right to present their point of view, and that point of view was pretty radical at Brooklyn College, but they have a right to their point of view. Obviously, those same feelings did not exist in Great Neck for Pam Geller. Jeff.
To say the least, it's amazing. We know now, and I'm not going to say where this information comes from, we know now that there was a political overtone to this, and I haven't quite figured out what the motivation is, but we know who wrote the letter on behalf of the Hebrew school, the day school, to the synagogue, saying that if you don't provide armed guards in perpetuity to the school, and God forbid anything happens, we'll hold you responsible. And so the board really of the synagogue had no choice based on that letter from you're not going to like to hear this, but it's from a law partner of Sheldon Silver, who's a member out here. I have no personal animosity to him, but I think people have to know that when people in a community do things that are not positive, they should be called out. On that basis, as David Yerushalmi has pointed out, when you allow someone to threaten your children and you capitulate, you are creating a greater danger for your children. By that logic, we have our children proudly march on Fifth Avenue in the Salute to Israel parade. Perhaps we should stop sending our kids to Jewish camps and to the Salute to Israel parade. Maybe we should close down and lock ourselves in our synagogues and in our homes and not do anything. So that has to be said. And the proof that there was not a sincere approach is that he then contacted Chabad and threatened to withdraw his support for Chabad if the event Sunday was not canceled. But Chabad has less of a reliance on a board of directors system, and Chabad basically said, we really value your support, but at the end of the day, we answer to God. and so the appearance is taking place tomorrow. The entire event is taking place tomorrow. But what I want to say, which is really outrageous in this community, is that, again, no one answers, not the press and not the more liberal members of our Jewish community. Why is it okay for in the mosque with which they have formed dialogues and brought members of the mosque in Old Westbury to Temple Bethel, why is it okay that in that mosque, Ghazi Khan, an unreconstructed anti-Semite who died last year, who was a friend of Mohammed T. Mehdi and other extremists, was allowed to preach that Israel and the CIA were responsible for 9/11. They coordinated it. And when he was asked by Newsday, how can you say that? He says, well, you have to ask yourself, who benefited from 9/11? And these are the people with whom you make partnerships and friendship. Now, there are many good Muslims. They're very decent people, the majority of them. But how good a friend are they if you can't have a candid discussion and say, listen, if I'm your friend, you have to condemn my enemy. You have a dangerous but significant minority within you. We Jews wouldn't tolerate such things. Christians wouldn't tolerate it. Hindus wouldn't tolerate it. There is obviously a sickness within Islam that certainly pervades the entire Islamic world and many sectors of communities in the United States and Europe and elsewhere where majority Muslims refuse to condemn this very dangerous minority. And Jerome Davidson, while he welcomed and created this dialogue project, which has been going on for 2 decades, never questioning them about people who support Hamas and about Ghazi Khan and about other extremists, which Peter King pointed out they're extremists even in that so-called moderate mosque. But when Chabad came to this community, and Great Neck was not always such a heavily Jewish area, and Chabad and Rabbi Kaczynski erected the first menorah on the village green next to the Christmas tree, Rabbi Davidson went to the village hall and he challenged and made a whole, as we say in Yiddish, Vaitzaku. There should not be a menorah there because a menorah is a religious symbol and the tree is a seasonal symbol. Well, let me just tell you, on behalf of Bill Donahue of the Catholic League for Civil Rights, It is a Christmas tree. We here in Great Neck are proud it's a Christmas tree, and we're proud to have our menorah next to the Christmas tree. And now you know what Jerome Davidson's priorities are. And I want to say, I hope that his son, who was just hired as the spiritual leader of Temple Emmanuel on Fifth Avenue, because Rabbi Posner retired, was a decent man who welcomes the Holocaust commemoration to his temple for 40 years. I hope that his son will conduct himself better on behalf of the Jewish people than his father.
Pam, let's talk about who you are. I know that the great tragedy of September 11th, that was sort of your turning point in your life, getting involved and really playing an important role in terms of talking about radical Islam, talking about Sharia law. Tell us more about that, how that all began after September 11th.
Well, I will say that prior to September 11th, I was apolitical. I loved my life. I assumed my freedom. It was sort of unconscious, my freedom. I assumed it. I loved my job. I was your quintessential New York City career girl. I loved my music, my art. 9/11 was a defining moment for me. I never thought for a moment that our freedom could be in jeopardy. It was like, we're in a post-historical age. The good guys won after World War II. The good cop America was on the beat, and all was well. Yes, there were skirmishes, yes, but it was all good because America was invincible in my eyes, and I was just crushed by it. My entire infrastructure, my epistemology, the nature of my knowledge, my whole premise seemed to be false. And I felt guilty that I didn't know who had attacked the country. And when I found out, I felt guilty that I didn't understand why our country was attacked. So, of course, I spent the ensuing years studying the world's leading scholars on Islam, like Robert Spencer and Ibn Warq and Batjeor, and I began to understand there was a jihadic doctrine that was 1,400 years old. And if you look through history, you learn. You don't learn about it today in the public schools because there's a silent Sharia on this. You cannot criticize Islam. You cannot offend. That's the blasphemy laws under the Sharia. But there's a 1,400-year history of over 275 million victims of jihadi wars, land appropriations, cultural annihilations, and enslavements. And I'm increasingly drawn to the web because the media, slowly but surely, was self-enforcing this Sharia. They would not criticize. They would not offend Islam. They would not talk about ideology. You even see now with Syria, all of these quote-unquote foreign fighters coming from England and France and Australia and Spain. It's not geography. Geography is as relevant here as what color socks they're wearing. It's ideology. And to say these things are blasphemous. In Muslim countries, blasphemers are the penalty for blasphemy under the Sharia, which Sharia is Islamic law, is death. And Christians are put to death in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. Here in the West, you're not assassinated, but your character is assassinated. Your name is smeared and dragged through the mud. You are demonized and marginalized and rendered radioactive. This is a form of murder. Destroying a person's good name and credibility is a form of murder. Ability to make a living, this is a form of murder. And we see this, this is a perfect, it's funny. It's poetic injustice, as it were. I was to speak at the Great Neck Synagogue on the Sharia and how it manifests itself in the West, in the case, in what I think is the most significant and most critical fight in the war, in the information battle space, which is the war on free speech. And that's what I was going to discuss, the war on free speech. And here we are. What could demonstrate the war on free speech than what we've witnessed over the past 2 or 3 weeks? The media's depiction of me, anti-Islam. Again, this is patently untrue. Yes, I oppose jihad. Yes, I oppose the most brutal and oppressive ideology on the face of the earth, the Sharia. But to say that I'm grouping all Muslims and painting them with a broad brush, no. The person accusing me of that is doing that. The ads that cause such a brouhaha. It's always omitted that my ads were a response, not to 1, not to 2, but to 3 anti-Israel ads that were running.
Yeah, Pam, Pam, let me point that out to our audience. There was a lot of attention focused on the ads of the MTA, at the train stations. Pam Geller played a critical role in bringing ads to the public that really were a response to viciously anti-Israel ads. Am I correct?
Yes, you are 100% correct, sir.
Okay, and your ads, which I read, and I could not understand why there would be a problem, except if you want to be politically correct. You know what I'm saying?
But you see, they're never described for what they are. It's a straw man. You have to defend yourself against a false narrative. The ad said, in any war between the civilized man and the savage, support the civilized man. Support Israel, defeat jihad. Now, look, if you know anything about the depiction of Jews in Islam, we are the most reviled of people. I mean, this is not Pamela Geller saying this. This is, read the Quran. Don't burn the Quran, read the Quran. And so it's a jihad against the Jews. Before 47, before 67, 48, even before 48, the pogroms, the Palestinian Muslims against the Palestinian Jews. The point is, what I said was support Israel, defeat jihad. And they say that those ads are anti-Muslim. They are implying by that accusation that all Muslims support jihad or that all Muslims are at war with Israel. I do not believe that. My ads do not say that. But if they depicted the ads honestly, then people would agree, because the initial reaction of the ads was very positive. I was receiving thousands of emails. Of course, the hate mail and the death threats, that comes with the territory. But I'm telling you, when this made such a, it's interesting, Dov, that it was a worldwide story. I mean, it just wasn't the New York Times, and it wasn't the LA Times and all the major networks. It was the Daily Mail. It was Le Monde. It was all over. And my 10 little ads, that's all it was. 10 little ads. Meanwhile, hundreds of anti-Israel ads, hundreds ran across the country. New York, Seattle, LA, Chicago, Florida. Nobody said boo. And by the way, not one of those ads were defaced. All 10 of mine were down within the hour.
That's amazing.
And the story that got the most publicity, of course, was a CNN commentator, Mona El-Tahawi, who was this icon of open-minded, liberal Muslim women, went down to destroy my ads, with a spray can, and there was a woman down there, Pamela Hall, who videos our rally. She was videoing, interestingly enough, positive reaction from subway riders when she saw Mona destroying the ads, and she put herself in front of the ad to protect it, and Mona, was spraying her and attacking her. This became a huge story. But why am I telling you this? Because this woman was in Cairo during the quote-unquote freedom rallies, the freedom marches, which really were just a Muslim Brotherhood coup. But she was raped, she was sexually attacked, and she called her attackers beasts. Now, nobody said anything about that, but when it comes to the Jews and it comes to Israel and the slaughter of the Fogel family and the tens of thousands of rockets going into Ashkelon and Sderot and blowing up a bus in Bulgaria with Jewish women and children on holiday, if you call those uncivilized people savages, that's wrong, that's hate. No, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is I do not promote hate. I expose hate.
Absolutely. Pamela, let me just point out, forget about Hamas and Hezbollah and Muslim Brotherhood and all the rest. We know what they represent. They represent hate towards America, hate towards Israel. We know that. We know what they would do if they ever had the power. But even the Palestinian Authority, the good guys, the moderates, I mean, every other week they're honoring these different radicals that blew themselves up and murdered men, women, and children in Israel.
Yes.
This is what they teach the kids.
Abbas was Yasser Arafat, the father of modern terror, his financier. Who says they're moderate? I'll tell you who says. The West says so. Now, I'm glad you brought this up. It's tangential, but it's related, because this is part of this failed fantasist policy that's completely disconnected from reality. And what is reality? Truth is the recognition of reality, which is why I speak with Greg Bartley. Greg Buckley lost his son on a green-on-blue attack because, our soldiers in Afghanistan, when they're on the base, they can't have weapons, and he and his brothers, his military brothers, were working out in the gym when the commander's T-boy, the boy that runs his errands, took a gun and blew his brains out. And his father could not understand this. These are our Afghan partners. No, there's a deliberate misunderstanding of the jihadic doctrine. You see it in the Pentagon report that was issued after Fort Hood that calls it workplace violence. Here is a jihadi, Major Hassan, Nidal Hassan, who was not only came out as a jihadi on Grand Rounds. As a matter of fact, his presentation is such a good presentation on jihad, I use it. He was wearing the garb of the Shaheed, of the suicide of the martyr, the day of his jihad. He was giving out Qurans the morning of his jihad. He was screaming Allahu Akbar when he mowed down our soldiers. If that's not jihad, what is?
Jeff, let me ask you, here you have Pam. Look, her point of view, I happen to agree with her point of view, but you don't have to agree with her point of view. Why are people so scared of someone like Pam Geller? Why are they so afraid to listen? Listen, go home and think. Go home and read more. Go home and study more. Why this close? People who are supposed to be open-minded. You're a trustee of the board of the city university. You deal with professors and teachers and instructors and students. Why this fear of listening to a different point of view? It's either my point of view or no point of view. I mean, Jeff.
There are two reasons, which are really one and the same. Liberals are rumored to be tolerant. They're really not tolerant. Left-wing people are not tolerant. I mean, on many campuses, conservatives will civilly listen to liberals, as long as they're not extreme leftists. They'll listen to them. But if a conservative comes on campus, all hell breaks loose. And that's very typical. What it is since they deal with moral relativism, in other words, everyone is basically at the same starting, midpoint, and ending point, where we're really all good at heart, that you shouldn't make any statements about people where there might be a subset of individuals who are an inordinate weighting within that larger group. In this case, radical Muslims as an overly weighted portion, an influential portion of the Muslim community, because this blows up their whole view that we're really all the same, we're really all wonderful, and there's moral relativism, and there's no difference between anybody. And that's a big problem, and this challenges that view that there is a serious problem in one faith, that there is a dangerous minority in one faith that the majority does not want to talk about and deal with. They'll tell you it is not our way. God, if they even criticize their fellow Muslims who are the evil ones, who are even a tiny fraction to the extent to which Jews criticize each other, it would be a whole different world. I mean, God knows what goes on amongst us Jews in terms of how we over-criticize each other. But it's about moral relativism. It challenges the liberal view that we're really all the same. It's the same view that has governments place the Palestinians and the Israelis on the same moral plane. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Pam, let me ask you, in America, and you've made this very clear in your writings and your public statements, American Muslims are fine people. They're as good as anyone else, period.
Of course.
Now, that's clear. It's not even like you have to think about that. But there are people within that world who believe in something, what I refer to as, I refer as radical Islam. How dangerous is that in terms of America?
It's wildly dangerous. We witness it every week in the thwarting of these attacks. Last month, there was a plan to bomb with a 1,000-pound bomb the Federal Reserve building. They're thwarting jihadi attacks all the time. Look, not every German was a Nazi either. This is a silly point, frankly. Now, do I wish that the moderates were more vocal? Of course I do. Do I understand why they're not? Yes, Yes, I do, because they live in those communities, and their life wouldn't be worth a plug nickel. Look, the day that the underwear bomber, the Christmas Day bomber, remember the Christmas Day, the underwear bomber? Okay, so he was going to blow up a plane. He sat in the 19th row to make sure the bomb went off over the fuel tank as the plane was coming into Detroit so that people on the ground were killed as well. When he was being arraigned in Detroit, there was a small group of Muslims protesting against him, protesting against the attack. And it was not 24 hours until the leader of that small group of Muslims had not one, not two, but 3 death fatwas on his head. So it is very difficult, and I blame the West, because if the West was standing up, it has no civilizational self-esteem. If the West was condemning and marginalizing jihad the way they did with the Ku Klux Klan, with whatever ideology that was anti-life, and I'm not talking about abortion, okay, then these jihadists would be marginalized as well. Instead, we in the West are supporting the Islamic supremacists. We are supporting those that want to eliminate and extinguish our civilization. This is what's so crazy. And frankly, the moderates are sitting. They're sitting on the sidelines, waiting to see who wins the war. And by the way, we're losing. We are losing. We have lost whole swaths of the Middle East and Africa to Islamic supremacist regimes. You may not have liked Mubarak, okay? And you may certainly not have liked Gaddafi. I mean, Gaddafi was not a good guy, but there's worse. And so we have taken secular regimes and replaced them with jihadist regimes in Libya. And look what happens. There's a reverb. Nothing. It's all fluid. Why do you think Mali has been overtaken by Al-Qaeda? Why do you think these countries are falling, like these moderate Muslim countries like Tunisia is now, in the throes of a jihadist regime? And we see what's happening, the agitation in Morocco. And it does disturb me that the only real freedom revolution was in Iran in June, July, and August of 2009. Why them? Because they've been living under the boot of the Sharia since 1979. Even the signs that they were holding up, apologizing for 1979, holding signs, Obama, you're either with us or against us. And even if to the amateur eye, if you didn't understand all the things that I was discussing with you, if you looked at the movement, it was all women. And it was women with eyeliner and women with high-heel shoes and women with hijab. So what? It was led by women. In these subsequent revolutions, it's all men. And when women dare venture into these marches, they're raped, they're beaten. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the media is still talking about an Arab Spring.
Wow. Unbelievable. Listen, Pam, I look forward to meeting you tomorrow morning personally, and I respect your courage, determination, and definitely your right to speech. I'm a super liberal when it comes to freedom of speech and your right to speak. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. Jeff, do you have the address with you in at the Chabad Synagogue?
Chabad is 400 East Shore Road, corner Hicks, Hicks Lane. 400 East Shore Road, corner Hicks Lane in Great Neck.
And I just want to shout out to Jeff, because he's been the motor behind all of this. He's been he's been a warrior. He's been steadfast, loyal, and true. He's taken an enormous amount of abuse, stood up and said, now show me what you got. Now show me what you got. He's been a hero in all of this, and I just want to, tip my hat to Jeff.
No need to mention it. No need to mention.
Too late. I already did.
Well, Pam, we don't have that many people who have the courage of their convictions, and it's easy to have courage when there are no consequences. It doesn't really matter. There aren't that many people around who stand by what they believe in and stand up and do the right thing in the eyes of God, as you pointed out earlier. Pam, I wish you all the luck in the world, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Jeff, thank you as well for having the courage of your convictions.
We all look forward to looking and see you as well. You've been active all these years, many more years than some of us.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Pam, thank you. Jeff, see you tomorrow. fascinating story. People are afraid to listen even, Dov.
Yeah.
It's, you don't have to agree with everything.
That's what we've been saying all along.
I mean, even some of the people you love, you don't necessarily agree with everything they say, but it's so easy to vilify somebody. It's so easy to throw mud, hoping that some of it will stick, and then that's the way to deal with it. Let's not debate. Let's not argue. And it's so easy to smear her. She's against Muslims. I have never seen her say anything like that. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. She's against dangerous people, whether they are Muslim or whether they are Christian or whether they are Jewish, right? Just unbelievable. Anyway, we will take a